This is why whenever you take ATVs out of vehicles and all that, you go slow, take it easy. That way you can stop before you flip your butt on the ground. I started backing up and I had still so much mud on Frank here that whenever I touched the gas, it just slid sideways right off the ramp. So I'm just going to start my truck up and pull forward and let it drop. It'll be fine. Yeah, after I get this thing unloaded, I'm going to head on up to Tractor Supply and see if I can't get a hold of the sprockets and stuff that I need. Go ahead and stuff that back in the carburetor, keep the water out of it. But yeah, I'm going to see if I can't get some bigger sprockets and chains to put on this, because that chain just didn't hold up. It stretched out and burned up. And I'm going to have to pull the engine again. I done lost count of how many times I pulled the motor off of this thing and put it back on. But I'm going to pull the motor again and redesign the entire motor mount so that I can have a little bit more adjustment on the chain. And I've kind of looked at this electric scooter I got, and from what I could see, the chain goes from the back wheel up to the pedals and then goes across, kind of like a jack shaft. I'm almost thinking I might be able to mount a motor there and run a clutch to the jack shaft and then run that to the back wheel through that chain there. But 6 horsepower I think will be too much. I'm thinking probably a little 3 horse, if I could find one, would be perfect for it. But that's later on. Okay. Well, the issues that I've had since I began this build is getting the engine at the right height and having the clearance to move the engine to tighten the chain, which I really don't have a whole lot of room to move this. It's almost touching on the back, and I've got a 1/2 inch up here, so I've pretty much just got a 1/2 inch of movement for chain adjustment, which makes it a pain in the butt. Well, I've been studying on this, and I went to Tractor Supply and picked me up some metal, and I believe what I'm going to do is weld to the frame here and come up and attach to this suspension mount here, and then attach it up here at the top. And once I get that welded and gusseted it in, I can take and I can cut this bar here and up here. Yeah, up here and like right here. And that'll give me enough room to where I can actually slide the engine 2 or 3 inches if I need to. It seems like about the only way I could figure to do it. Either that, or I could just attach here and go up to the frame from this point up, because it's got a crossbar to support there. So it's got quite a bit of support, and honestly, if I cut that out, I really don't think that I'm going to take that much stiffness out of the frame. But I want to go ahead and put a support back in anyway, because I mean, I do have all the support from my front rack that I've built and anchored there, so it should still be pretty stiff. But I'm going to go ahead and weld me a bar in there, gusset it in, and then cut that out and get it out of the way. And then this old mount that I threw together, I'm going to cut this out and rebuild this entire mounting system and put me a plate with a long slot, so I have a lot of adjustment for my chain after that. But anyway, after I get this tore off, I'll let you guys see exactly how everything was set up and put in there. And you can see where I took a Sawzall and an angle grinder and cut the engine off of the transmission. I've got a 10 horse Briggs in the shop and it's a overhead valve engine, and I'm thinking about setting this up so that 10 horse will fit in here. That'll give me a lot more low-end torque and power. The downside is, though, I don't know if the transmission will handle 10 horses, because, I mean, you know, it originally was a 250cc, and I'm not sure how long it'll last with some extra power and torque running through it. But if we blow the transmission, then I have another plan. I'll just cut everything out, remove the transmission, and I've got a 19 horse horizontal shaft sitting in the shop, and I'll get it running, and we'll put that on here with the jack shaft, because if I'm going to lose reverse, I'm going to gain power, you know. Anyway, let's get started tearing it down. I've got my gears ordered, so it'll be, you know, this is going to be a couple of videos for a build, because I'm not going to be able to get everything done all at once, so we'll do this in a couple installments. And we'll get into a little bit more detail on how, you know, I got this all set up and put in here, and how I'm improving it. Now that we got the torque converter off and a few other things taken off, you can see right there how much clearance I had whenever I shoehorned this thing in. So I really couldn't go any further back with it, and I had about a ½ inch up front that I could have went up, but that's it. Right in here you can see where the original block was attached to this, and I cut through all that all the way down to the bottom. And whenever I got to the bottom, I had one part I couldn't get off, so I got mad and I smacked the casing with a hammer and just broke it off. But anyway, that's how I got the engine separated from the transmission. I had to cut all the way down through all this mess. Let me turn the light on this camera. There we go. That'll help out a little bit, but I had to cut down through all that aluminum and, you know, cast aluminum all the way down to the bottom, and work on shoehorning this thing in there. But I really didn't have a whole lot of room to work with, and I didn't want to go, I couldn't go up any higher actually, because the original shifter was up in there, and it wouldn't allow me to go up any higher or any farther over the way it was. And of course I broke that off, you know, goofing around riding it, and wound up putting a foot shifter on it, which I hadn't thought about that before until after I broke it. So yeah, hindsight's 20/20. I've learned quite a bit since I did slap this thing together, and we're gonna make several improvements. Hopefully it'll be improvements, because all this down here is going to go, and I'm going to rebuild all this, and like I said, cut out those bars and gusset it in, and that way I'll have several inches more I can move forward. And when I built the original mount, I was afraid of going too high, of course, because of the shifter and the carburetor clearance, so that you can get to the cables and stuff. I wanted to have a little bit of room up there. But and I also wanted to keep the original fuel tank, because I like having 2 gallons up there instead of less than a gallon, so I don't run out of gas out on this thing that often. Of course, I don't run out of gas because it keeps breaking down, but we're going to fix all that. And now you could kind of see what I was working with right in here, and right up here on my clearances for chain adjustment. This sprocket here is coming back off. I've got a sprocket coming for a 41, so I get the astute pleasure of grinding this out completely and removing this. I should be able to grind the welds off and enough of the shaft and sprocket off to where I don't have to turn the shaft down again, because with everything the way I'm going to set it up, I should be able to move the engine over to adjust for a shorter shaft here. And of course, a little bit shorter shaft here is going to make this a lot stronger. You know, shorter bar is harder to bend. So anyway, that's what we got going at this moment. I'm getting ready to pull these 2 motor mount bolts off, and then jump to the other side and unhook the fuel system, and then we can yank that engine off of there and start removing this garbage. Get everything cleaned out of here so I have room to work, and then we can start putting it back. Well, the engine's out. I got the fuel tank drained and all that. So now it's time to start cutting and grinding. Yeehaw. Well, I've got the old motor mount out. I've got everything out of the way. So now I guess it's time to start figuring out how I'm going to gusset that and still be able to get to the A-arm bolts without having to fight with anything. So I reckon I'm going to call it a night and pick this up in the morning. Anyway, I guess we'll see y'all later.